What is up, guys? I hope all is well. Welcome to the Life as a Chad YouTube channel, and I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. Recently, I was asked a question. I was emailed a question, and I thought it was a pretty good one, and I thought it was worth answering video style. But before I fully dive into it, I do want to say that I don't want to have this become a strictly woman's channel or quote unquote manosphere channel, because I also really do enjoy politics and talking about those things. I mean, I enjoy it all, and it's all a blast to talk about. But I do love getting into questions that I wish I had answered for me, and seeing if I can give some words of wisdom out there. And the question, of course, was surrounding women in the workforce, how to act around them as a man, what to watch out for as a man, and kind of just navigate the waters that is the modern workforce. Now, men, I want you to understand that us modern men, we are the first, probably since the 70s or 80s, we have been the first generations of men to have to deal with this and navigate a work environment with so many women, especially nowadays. Not only just that, but having women supervisors as well. It is incredibly difficult to navigate. I will not even front about that because I can't. So I will just dive in here and just kind of give my thoughts, and then just the best way I think that you can be as a guy in the workforce. Now, the first little story I have, just to kind of exemplify how difficult it is, and the double standards that are given towards men in the workforce. And the story I have, of course, is from one of my first jobs. Um, I had a female supervisor. She was probably late 30s, early 40s. She used to be attractive. Now, or at the time, this was probably 7 or 8 years ago. At the time, she was okay, I guess, for her age. Like I said, she used to be fairly attractive back in the day in the Dizzle. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure she actually modeled for money. She showed me it one time just to, brag a little bit about what she used to be. And she did have some pretty big knockers. And it is what it is. As I continued working with her. As I said, she was my supervisor. What ended up happening, and I was not aware of this at the time, what I thought, because at the time I thought that men and women could indeed, especially in a work environment, men and women could be friends the same way that men and men are friends. But what was happening was our relationship was developing into what is known as a work husband relationship. I would be aware of, she would talk to me about her kids, her home life, her husband, things that quite frankly, I could give two fucks about. She would talk to me about, we would go to lunch almost every day. And oftentimes she would pay for my lunch. And her husband, from what I could gather, was a welder, an underground welder. I knew where they lived. They had a decent house, a decent life. And I know from how much money I was making that she was not doing that much better. She wasn't doing terribly, but it wasn't like, I'm guessing the husband made considerably more money. In fact, not guessing, I know he did. Oftentimes she would come to work complaining, and this and that. There was also another coworker of mine who was about the same age. Both of these women were Latinas. I was the one of the only guys in there. white guy as well. And, they would talk to each other in Spanish. One of them would often talk. Little did they know that I know Spanish a little bit. She would talk about the men that she would step out on her husband, who was, I think, he helped yards or whatever, fixed yards, landscaper. That's the word I'm looking for. He was indeed a landscaper. Anyways, so they would commonly talk about that. Just things that me as a man, I would not consider appropriate for the work environment. Now, this perfectly illustrates the double standard that exists, because if me and another guy were talking about the same things that they were talking about, we would have the dime dropped on us in 2 seconds. And we would probably be terminated subsequently after that. Um, Anyways, fast forward to my supervisor chick. Um, when I was working there, I had just gotten out of a relationship. It was my only long-term relationship that I have ever had in my life. And like I had said, we went out to lunch all the time. If I didn't go out to lunch with her, she would go out to lunch with other people, and she would basically manipulate me and make it to the point that if I did not choose to go out to lunch with her, that something was wrong. And I would basically be punished either in a manipulative way, or in a way that she could, as a supervisor, get, hold over me, which at the time, that was my first full-time job I had ever had. And, it was pretty easy for her to do so. Anyways, fast forward, this was probably one of the last lunches we went to. And I also want to say we never, kissed or anything like that. And the long and the short of it is, she had a couple of beers at the lunch we were at, and uh, my ex-girlfriend gave me a call and I didn't pick up, and she decided to pick up the phone and joke to the ex-girlfriend about how big of a cock I had, this and that, which again, we had never been with each other like that. But that is the type of relationship that we had. Again, even just that, if I did that to a chick, I would absolutely be terminated. And in that very lunch, after that conversation, I can't even remember at the time what brought this on. She flashed me her hoo-has, not bare-breasted, the whole thing. The breastises were still in the brassiere, but nonetheless, she did that. And at the time, I was very confused about what to do, what was my next step. And so I decided that the most appropriate thing to do, based off of everything that I had heard about sexual harassment, what to do, and things like that, was to go and tell my we did not have HR, but she was basically in the HR position. She was the accountant. She was the HR person. She kind of fulfilled a few roles at the establishment that we worked at. I told her about it, and I will never forget to this day. At the end of the conversation, she said, "If I were you, I would quit, and I would look for a new place to work." And she said it very sincerely. I think she meant it. She didn't mean it in a way like, you're shit, you're never going to make it here or anything like that. I think she meant it in a very, very sincere way. Fast forward a week later, and the director, or whoever was running the place where I worked, called me in and said that it wasn't going to work. I was not terminated, even if I was, it wouldn't be a big deal. But he said that he thought it would be best if I moved on. And at that point, I had understood what was going on. And so I decided to walk away myself. Now, I share that story to say that a few things. Number one, there's always two sides to every story. And I don't want to say that I am this perfect employee or this perfect guy or anything like that. But looking back at that situation all these years later, I was not in the wrong in that situation, not one bit. Um, the second thing that I want to say here is, and I have already said this a few times, there are multiple examples through the little story that I gave that even just a few things had I done or said uh, to another guy or to another girl that a girl happened to overhear, or the person her if if I was saying it to that girl directly, that I would be let go in 2 seconds. The double standard in the workplace is real, and that's the main point of this story that I want to share, that the double standard is very, very real indeed. And you need to understand that as a man and accept it, because if you don't, it's not going to work out for you. You need to internalize it and just say, fuck it. It is what it is. Because at the end of the day, unless you're willing to strap up and go get an attorney and a lawyer and really get after it and go through all the bullshit of how people are going to look at you for doing something that they're like, huh? That can happen to a man, because that's the other thing about this, and the reason why the double standard exists, because the equality in the workplace only exists one direction. It only exists in a beneficial manner to the women. Any of those same rules, if it's applied the other direction, do not exist. There are a whole separate set of rules that men play by, especially in the workforce. And so at the end of the day, unless you are willing to strap up and take all the wear and tear financially, the looks, because as I said, most people do not think that a man can actually be harassed. Yeah, you heard it. Most people do not actually believe that a man can indeed be harassed by a woman, which is total bullshit. Women are even bigger sexual harassers by the definition of the rule than men are. And so, unless you're willing to strap up, you have to just accept it and move forward. Which brings me to my next point here about how to navigate the workforce as a man. Work husbands. In no circumstance can you allow yourself to become a work husband. And this is really the way that women absolutely take advantage of their new place in the workforce, because as much as women want to say that they like sex as much as men do, they don't. And when they go to work, the perfect kind of best of both worlds situation that they can get, that they wish that they had with their actual husbands, they get to have at work. Now, sometimes it ends up going further than that, and sometimes a man is able to get through the goalpost, but by and large, the woman at the workplace is just going to try and make you her work husband, and have you uh, have a lot of the same things that she would ask her actual husband or actual boyfriend to do at home with you at work, without any of the benefits that you're searching for as a man. And again, you cannot allow that to happen. I am a huge advocate of knowing your worth and your how valuable your time is as a man, and not giving it up freely. Do not allow yourself to get into the space of a work husband. It doesn't mean if you're asked every now and again to do something that you can't say yes, but you do have to be very careful that you do not become the work husband or the errand boy for that particular chick at work, or even multiple chicks. I knew a guy that I worked with who was the biggest work husband I had ever seen in my life. He would come to work and he would be asked by nearly every single one of the women for him to get this for them, for this, for them to do this. Oftentimes, they would ask him to help them complete their work that they could not get done on time, which, of course, if he asked them to do the same, which he did not, they would not make it happen. And to me, that is just inexcusable. As I said, this guy would be asked to do so many different things, and end up having to help them with so much of their work, simply because they knew he was a fucking pussy and that he would say yes every time. Now, on the flip side, and I've asked myself this very question, is it worth the heat or the scorn that you will receive inevitably, from a chick at work when you say no to those work husband type tasks? Some would argue, no, it's not worth it. And I could see the argument to be made about that. I really, really can. Um, you know, the statement, hell hath no fury like a woman scorn, is very, very true, and that extends to the workforce as well. You think that that a woman acts one way at home, and acts another at work? No, no, no. They're just a little bit better at work, but they still are who they are. And if you say no to any one of their demands, they will remember it and they will find a way to retaliate against you. In my experience, the way that women often retaliate in the workforce is by going and telling on you to your superior, by going and dropping a dime on you to your superior. Which brings me to my third point, which is focusing and just doing your job. That is the only way that you can stay in line and stay on the guardrails, because it does become very easy to get into the drama, to get into the all this extracurricular peripheral bullshit that does not matter. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your work and you going to work and completing the task that you need to get done. And it is a way to set you up for the best success possible and not have to do any of this work husband bullshit and get brought into this drama. I saw a video from this guy. He cut it up really, really well. And his advice, uh, regarding this same exact topic was to basically just be indifferent to it, because no matter what, women will be women regardless of where they're at, regardless if it's at home, if it's at a party, if it's at work, and they will start drama. And so you need to be indifferent. You almost need to be more stoic at work and more in tune with your masculinity at work than you do at home, because again, it's your money that we're talking about, and you have to, because you have to be on your toes, because at the end of the day, they will find a moment of weakness. They will remember one thing that you do wrong, that you may think in the moment, well, we're just friends, we're friends. She would never tell on me. She would never go and say, she does this, but she does this. And so I can do this. And, we have a good talking. No, no, no. In 2 seconds, if it is not exactly how she wants it, she will be willing to go and drop a dime on you to your supervisor. And it just is what it is. So you need to be indifferent, and you need to always be aware that they are watching you, uh not in a watching over your shoulder paranoid type way, but just realizing it and being on your shit and not doing anything that you're not supposed to be doing, not letting off, letting your hands off the reins for a second, because that can come and bite you in the ass. The fourth piece of advice I would give is to not compete with these women, because at the end of the day, women don't really like competition. And even though there's some of these alpha women out here at work, even they don't even like competing. So guys, you're not really competing with them. You're just it may appear that way, but you're really not. And it becomes blurry, like I said, with some of these alpha women who have a lot of masculine qualities, which I will get to here in a moment and give my 2 cents on that as well. But you really are not in competition with them. Just put your head down, do your work. Don't get into all this side bullshit, because in the end, it will not help you, and you're not gonna. There is no benefit to getting into any of this side shit with any of these women at work because, in my opinion, they're not options. They are simply not options. You're not going to get with them. You should not get with them. And that is just the end of the story. They need to be kept at arm's length. The last piece of advice I want to give before giving an example of the alpha women and some of these older women that are actually very tragic, in my opinion. And I'm probably going to do a whole separate video on them because it is so terribly tragic. But the last piece of advice I want to give you is just to accept the double standards. And one of those is, of course, harassment. Okay. I have a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology, and that degree is perfectly in line with HR, definitely a leadership degree, but a lot of people who get those degrees end up going into human resources. And point is not to brag about the degree, but to say that I know about all of these trainings that you have to do, all of these trainings that are put into place, and to say that, yes, a double standard absolutely exists, especially if you are an attractive man. If you're an attractive man, you will absolutely receive double standard type attention that, if it was the other way, would be seen as predatorial from you if you did it the other way. I already gave you guys the example at the beginning of the video of my own supervisor flashing me her tits at work. Okay. Many other times, just small examples are how close women will get to me, close to the point of their breasts touching, my arm or something, which again, in normal circumstances, I wouldn't give a fuck. And in any previous era of time wouldn't even fucking matter, but it matters now because women are in the workforce. And it's one of those things where it happens and your initial reaction is, oh, I don't give a fuck. And then you remember the training that you received and you go, huh, well, that's not allowed. That, maybe I should be more concerned about that. It got so bad one time that I had to say to a chick who was at the same level as me, essentially, I had to say, can you give me some space, please? And this is something that always happens. As a supervisor, I've had, in previous employment, I've had, chicks touch my hair. I have had many chicks come and touch the bicep, in a certain type of way, the waist, that things that I would never consider for a moment doing the opposite direction. And it just is what it is. Because the reality is, even if I went and said something, nothing would come of it. The worst that would happen is that female staff would be given a talking to and probably be told that I am just being a dickhead, that I'm just being a pussy. And that's just the reality of it. And I hate to say it, but it's either, at the end of the day, it's either you accept it and accept the reality for what it is, or you put your guns up and you say, okay, I'm going to accept all of the turmoil of fighting back against this, and really getting after it. It just depends. I mean, I have another example. I had a staff member one time come over me, to the point of having her breastises in my face and then putting her hand on my hand while showing me how to like do something on the computer. Again, something that I would only consider doing at a bar. And even then, I would still fucking think twice of doing that. The final little 2 cents I want to give, and I do think I'm going to give a video on this, and I do want to say, guys, the struggle is real. I absolutely understand. It is so difficult to navigate the workforce nowadays. That's why I would say, you know, it may be, even if you are an intelligent guy, it may be worth it entirely to skip college and just getting a trade where it's predominantly going to be men working in that field, because it is a lot to navigate. It's either you stay in your masculine role and end up pushing back against a lot of the bullshit, or you end up being turned into some cuck beta work husband and just accepting all the bullshit. And it's very, very difficult. The final 2 cents that the example I want to give is, as I said, when I was in my previous employment, or one of my previous employments as a supervisor, where I worked had quite a few older women working there, older people in general, but definitely quite a bit of older women. And I remember, and a vast majority of them were divorcees with kids. I remember one of them who, was a perfectly fine staff member. She had a daughter and a few other kids. She was divorced. She was like 67, maybe even 70 years old, and she was working two fucking entry level jobs, two entry level jobs at 70 fucking years old. And she would come to work complaining about having to get rides from her grown ass kid or grown ass kid adults. She would come to work complaining about that. And I remember in that moment, I thought to myself, man, feminism has fucking lied to these women. It has absolutely lied to these women. Is this all it has to show for? Was all of this worth it? Was all of this worth it? Because the reality is, and this is what women are not taught, once they get past 30, the power that they had before they were 30 years old no longer exists. So, they're basically going like this, zoom, and they think that it's always going to be like that. They're going to go up and up and up, but then when they get 30, it not only does it plateau, but it starts going down, and they no longer receive the same beneficial treatment that they received prior. There are countless examples that I have of these older women who were married, have kids, and still have to fucking work and have a young, supervisor like myself. And I remember at the time thinking, man, how fucking pathetic. I feel fucking dumb as fuck having to even be supervisors to these people. They're fucking 70 years old. Come on, man. But I still had to do my job. And there were several of these women. And this is what it's going to be like moving forward. This is exactly what it's going to be like moving forward. It's probably even going to get worse. But don't let any of these female coworkers treat you like their son. They're not your mom. Don't let them treat you as such. Don't let them turn you into a husband or a work husband. It's just not. It's just not going to happen. And stay focused on your work. I would always advise being as intelligent as you can about who is around, and trying to be in places, especially if there is a female employee, where there's a third person who can see your interaction. Because again, there is the double standard that exists, and it is what it is. The final example that I wanted to give, I mean, and this is what, and when it comes to the alpha women, is women who end up getting into positions of leadership at work inevitably become very masculine women, which of course is not comfortable for them. It is not a normal position for them to be in. You will commonly see 400, 500, 600 pound women in positions of authority because in order for them to cope with the stressors of being in leadership, they end up becoming food addicts. You will see smokers. You will see them being loud and obnoxious and never allowing you to get a word in because they aren't comfortable in the position that they're in, and it's a learned trait. It's a learned behavior that they are not comfortable being in. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. If you have any more questions about how to navigate the workplace as a man, just reach out to me. And if you want to learn even more, ask for my email. We'll see what we can do there. Remember, fellas, this is your life is all about you. Do not allow any chick out there to bog your life down, to be a dream killer. As I have to do I am absolutely going to be doing a video about this guy, Tom Likas. I hadn't heard of him before, but that dude is a straight pimp. Do not let any woman be a dream killer to you. Keep moving forward. Keep being a pimp. Keep being a king. And I will see you guys next time. DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. Bye-bye.